ॐ
सदाशिवसमारम्भां
सदाशिवसमारम्भां
शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम्
शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम्
अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां
अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां
वन्दे
वन्दे
गुरुपरम्पराम्
गुरुपरम्पराम्
ॐ सहना
ॐ
भवतु
सहना भवतु
सहनौ भुनक्तु
सहनौ भुनक्तु
सह वीर्यं
वीर्यं
करवावहै
करवावहै
तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा
तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा
विद्विषावहै
विद्विषावहै
ॐ
ॐ
शान्ति
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 शान्तिः
शान्तिः
Om Tat Sat, Om Namah Shivaya. Good
Om
morning.
Tat Sat,
Hari
Om
Om.
Namah Shivaya, Hari Om.
Okay, so we are on the Advaita Prakranam, third chapter. We had completed Karika number 19 and we are on Karika number 20. So please unmute yourself. We will chant. Ajatasaiva bhavasya
अजातस्यैव भावस्य
अजातस्यैव भावस्य
jatim icchanti vadinaha
जातेमिच्छन्ति
जातिमिच्छन्ति
वादिनः
वादिनः
अजातो ह्यमृतो भावः
अजातो
अजातो हि मृतो
भावः
भावः
मर्त्यतां कथमेष्यति
मर्त्यतां
मर्त्यतां कशम् एष्यति.
Okay, so we are continuing about the Purvapakshis. So he says Vadinaha Jatim Icchanti. The Purvapakshis, the debaters, Icchanti, they want to know Jatim, about the birth. Of what? Ajatasya bhavasya evaha. So bhavaha here means the tattvam, the real entity. Therefore, ajatasya bhavasya eva. These people, these Purvapakshis, they wish to know about the birth of the ajatasya bhavaha, that one who is never born, right? And so the question is, Katham ajataha amritaha bhavaha? How can one who is not born, how can that one who is not born, who is this immortal, amritaha bhavaha, immortal entity, martyatam eshyati, how can he become mortal? Right? So this is the first line is the question that we want to know how this Brahman is born. Second line is how can a birthless, immortal Brahman become mortal? Martyatam Eshati Katham. So, there are many darshanas, many philosophers who say that Brahman or Ishvara. Okay, now remember that at these levels, and especially if you look at Shankara Bhashya, Shankara never uses, or rather, Shankara always uses the two words Brahman and Ishvara very, very loosely. Right? It's a very deliberate usage to indicate that there is no real difference. Brahman and Ishvara are the same because Ishvara is Brahman plus Maya. Maya is part of Brahman, a different reality, a lower reality, but a part of Brahman. So there is no real difference. And therefore, Shankara Bhashyams, if you read, you will find that he uses the word Brahman, Ishvara very, very loosely. So Saguna Brahman and Nirguna Brahman, he does not really differentiate. So they say, there are these darshanas, they say that this Brahman, this Ishvara, really transforms into Jagat. Right? And therefore they say that before Srishti, Brahman exists, but there is no universe. During Srishti, universe exists, but since Brahman has transformed into the universe, during Srishti there is no Brahman. Right? And during Pralayam, this universe is not there, and therefore Brahman is there. So it's a very subtle argument they use. They say before Srishti begins, there is only Brahman. So there is no universe. Once Srishti has begun, there is only universe. But the fact is, their view is that Brahman actually transforms into universe. And therefore, where can the Brahman is transformed into the universe? There is an actual transformation. So the only universe is there is no Brahman. And during Pralayam, the reverse takes place. universe is no longer there, only Brahman is there. So their idea is that Brahman, the changeless Brahman, changes into the universe. So the substance Brahman before the Srishti is one thing, and that changed substance Brahman after Srishti is the universe. That is different from the earlier Brahman. So, like milk changing into curds. Once milk has changed into curds, the milk is no longer available. It's only curds. So, this is the example. And Shankara says for such philosophers, Tesham, for these philosophers, Paramarthata eva jatam chet. Chet, if Paramarthata eva jatam, if Brahman has really transformed into Jagat, then what will happen? Avasyam martyatam esyati. That Brahman will definitely become mortal. Why? Because anything which changes has a destruction, right? Can be destroyed. Therefore, that Brahman will definitely become mortal because having transformed into Jagat, there is no more Brahman during this Srishti, and therefore Brahman has become mortal. He is no longer there, right? But and then he says, but that unborn immortal Brahman, Ajataha Amritaha Brahman, Swabhavataha, intrinsically by its own real nature, is what? Is unborn and immortal. And then that same Brahman is the Atma. How can it become mortal? In no way can it become mortal. So it is a statement made by Shankara saying that this idea of the Purvapakshi cannot be accepted because the idea says, the logic of the idea will prove that Brahman actually goes away during Srishti and therefore it is mortal because it's no longer there. Right? And that we do not accept because Brahman is Atma and Atma is Brahman. And Shruti says that Brahman and Atma both are Nityam, eternal and immortal. Therefore, Shankara says, in no way can you say that Brahman is mortal. The logic also indicates in no way can you accept a theory that Brahman actually transforms into Jagat. This is that Karika. Okay. Now we will look at the next Karika. All very, very beautiful ideas we should remember. Okay. We are on Karika number 21. We will chant. न भवत्यमृतं मर्त्यं
न भवत्यमृतं
न
मर्त्यं
भवत्यमृतं मर्त्यं
न भवत्यमृतं मर्त्यं
न
न
भवत्यमृतं मर्त्यं
भवत्यमृतं मर्त्यं
मर्त्यं
न मर्त्यम् अमृतं तथा
न मर्त्यमृतं
मर्त्यम्
तथा
अमृतं तथा
प्रकृतेरन्यथा भावः
प्रकृतेरन्यथा
प्रकृतेरन्यथा
भावः
भावः
न कथञ्चित् भविष्यति.
न
न
कथञ्चित् भविष्यति
कथञ्चित् भविष्यति.
Okay, so again the same idea is being repeated. Na bhavatya mritam martyam. So na bhavati amritam martyam. Amritam martyam na bhavati. The immortal cannot become mortal. Okay, so that's what it says. Na amritam, or rather amritam martyam na bhavati. The immortal cannot become mortal. And na martyam amritam tatha. In the same manner, the immortal martyam cannot become immortal. So bhavati you have to supply. Tatha na martyam amritam bhavati. Why? Na prakrutehe anyatha bhavaha. Prakrutehe, the intrinsic, natural nature, the prakriti anyatha bhavaha, the transformation of intrinsic nature, na kathanchit bhavishyati, cannot take place in any manner whatsoever. Okay. So these karikas, they are basically karikas refuting duality, Dvaita Ninda karikas, and therefore we should be understanding these properly, they are worthwhile doing nididhyasana upon. And when once these karikas are understood correctly, assimilated properly, then we'll know what moksha actually is. Right? Not only moksha, we'll also know what is Atmajnana. So here is a very, very important karika, this one, the 20th karika. What does it say? It's presenting a very fundamental law of Vedanta, intrinsic nature, with the very fact that you are using nature. Nature is what? Nature is that which is natural, which cannot change. So intrinsic nature cannot change. And all the sadhana that the Veda prescribes is based on this principle. How do you know? If the intrinsic nature of a jivatma is mortality, then based on this principle, that mortality will never go away, right? He will always be mortal. Whether you go to Kailasha or to Vaikuntha or to Brahmaloka, that mortality cannot disappear if you are saying that jivatma is intrinsically mortal. And therefore there is a sadhana. Because Shastram says no, your intrinsic nature is not mortality, it is immortality. That essential nature can never go away. What you think of as mortality is a superimposition, an adhyasa on you, the immortal Brahman. So, the understanding should be that I am always liberated. I have been, I am, and I will be liberated. You cannot say that I am not liberated now and I will be liberated in future. Anybody who does sadhana for moksha, remember that he will never get moksha because he is working for something which will never come. If I think that I am bandaha, I am bound, this working for moksha is meaningless, right? Because it will never come. What is the answer? To understand that I do not need to work for moksha because I am already free. So the entire Vedantic study is to answer a question. Am I always liberated or am I never liberated? Or to put it in more rhyming words, am I ever liberated or am I never liberated? That is the entire study of Vedanta. And depending upon how well we understand the scripture, the Shastram, the answer you get of this question, am I ever liberated or am I never liberated? That answer which you have decides whether Vedanta has been assimilated by you. If you say, I am always liberated, you have assimilated Vedanta. If you say, I am not liberated and I will get liberation in future, you need more Shravanam, you need more Maranam. Right? So, immortality and mortality are two different sides, two different ends. There is no bridge which connects both. You cannot move from mortality to immortality. One is finite, one is infinite. And therefore, never make a conscious effort, a sadhana, to become immortal. What is the only sadhana? It is the inquiry. Am I immortal or am I immortal? This is the basic question that Ramana Maharshi used to ask. Who am I? Who am I means what? Am I the mortal Jivatma or am I the immortal Brahman, Paramatma? That is the inquiry of Vedanta. And this inquiry can only be conducted through the study of the scriptures, not by sitting and meditating. Right? So just as the heat of the fire never goes away, as long as fire is there, heat will be present. As long as you are there, immortality will be present. The moksha is not some sadhana which you do. Moksha is just dropping the idea that I have to do any sadhana at all. Why? Because I am already muktaha. Right? If you are convinced that you are Nitya Brahman, Nitya Mukta Brahman, where is the question of any sadhana? any question of sadhana. I will rephrase that. Where is the question of any sadhana to become Nitya Muktaha? It's not necessary. You can do sadhana, but that sadhana is not for mukti. It is not for moksha. Because every sadhana, what does it do? It is only to remind myself that I am Nitya Muktaha. It is easy to forget that. I have so many problems, morning till evening. It is easy to forget in that crowded day that I am Nitya Muktaha. And therefore, all sadhanas are to remind myself that I am Nitya Muktaha. And this is Nidhi Dhyasana, a regular reminder that I am already Nitya Muktaha. There is no need for any further effort. Okay. Very, very profound karika. Any questions? Right.
One
Yeah.
point, I would not say question because it's very profound. But only thing is, when we say that no sadhana is required, once that understanding or claim is there that I am the Brahman,
Yeah.
in that case, uh, there is a difference between upasana and sadhana, or
No.
they
Upasana
are.
is a sadhana. Karma yoga is
So
sadhana. Upasana is sadhana, but it is not for moksha.
so for others we can pray and do the upasana. We continue to do this.
No, your karma yoga and upasana yoga is an essential part of your spiritual progress, right? But the
Right.
understanding should be that gives me chitta shuddhi only, the jnana yogyata.
Huh.
Once jnana yogyata is there, the only
Huh.
sadhana is to know that I am already immortal, which is the answer to the question, who am I? That is studying of.
So it leads us to keep us reminded that I am liberated.
Yes.
Okay.
So this is meant for a person who is already, a jnana nishtha.
Sadhana Chatushtayam who has achieved.
He's a jnana nishtha. He has done Shravanam, Maranam and successfully Nididhyasanam.
Nididhyasana.
And
Right.
therefore he doesn't need any more sadhana at all.
Right. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
So Ashtavakra is, Mandukya also says the same thing Ashtavakra says. You are already free. Okay. Now we look at the next karika. Yes, please.
May I ask one question?
Go ahead.
If somebody has already understood that I am liberated, then still he needs to keep on doing the upasana and sadhana for lifelong time, or he can just remain without sadhana or without upasana because he has already understood everything.
You don't need, any more karma or upasana. What I will say, however, is that if you are not a, sannyasi living on the mountain, you will be constantly in touch with the world. All of us are grahasthas, right? You will be constantly in touch with your wife, your husband, your children, your neighbors, your watchman, your milkman. All these will constantly remind you that you are a finite jivatma. And therefore, Nididhyasanam is to tell yourself every day that in spite of all these interactions, those interactions are not being done by me. They are being done by the body, mind, sense complex, which is governed by prarabdha. And I am Nitya Mukta Atma, free from that. That is the Nididhyasanam. You need to keep on doing it till the body drops.
Okay, got it.
Which is why, if you look at all these movies and dramas and all that, where you see rishis are supposed to be Jivan Mukta, right? But they always have that Rudramala in their hand and they're keeping on doing that. What is that? With every turn of the bead, they are reminding themselves that Aham Brahmasmi. All these things don't really affect me.
So that way, Lord Krishna says that even for Lok Sangra, also one has to keep on doing the karmas.
Yes, if you are in a position of responsibility, you are a father, you are a mother, you are a political person. Though of course nowadays we don't say political persons are role models, but any role model, if you don't if you're a jnani and you're recognized as a jnani, there's a very heavy responsibility Because if you don't do any sadhana, then everybody will say that I will do exactly what my guru does. I will also not do any sadhana. So it is necessary for the sake of the world to do the sadhana.
But the
Uh,
intention should be different. That I
the
already
intention,
realized.
yeah, the intention is loka sangraha. Let them also be on the way to spirituality. That is the
Oh,
intention. For their good.
thank you.
So loka sangraha means for their good, basically.
Like Acharya ji teaching us week after week.
Okay. Right. Now we go to the 22nd Karika. स्वभावेनामृतो यस्य
स्वभावेनावृतो यस्य
स्वभावेनामृतो यस्य
भावो गच्छति मर्त्यताम्
भावो
भावो गच्छति मर्त्यताम्
कृतकेनामृततस्य
मृतकेनामृतस्य
कृतकेनामृतस्य
कथं स्थास्यति निश्चला
कथं स्थास्यति
कथं
निश्चलः
स्थास्यति निश्चल
तो यस्य उसके लिए फॉर दैट पर्सन स्वभावेन अमृतम भावः. So for a person, if what is immortal by nature, swabhavena amritam bhavaha, martyatam gacchati, can become. So swabhavena amritam bhava means what is immortal by nature for a person, martyatam gacchati, can become mortal, tasya, for that person, katham amritam nischalaha sthasyati. You can understand? For a person for whom that which is immortal can become mortal, how can that immortality be nischalaha, constant for that person? Why? Because kritakena, since it's a product. Right? This is the same argument being continued. It's called a abhyupetyavadaha, argument using a supposition. Supposing that Brahman, who was once immortal, has become mortal by being transformed into Jagat and Jiva. This is the Abhyupetyavadaha, the suppositional argument. Suppose that Brahman, who is immortal, changes into Jagat and Jiva and then becomes mortal because of that, because the original Brahman is no longer available. What happens? This Jiva now, because the Brahman has changed not only into Jagat, has changed into Jiva also. So this Jiva, what Jiva? That Brahman, immortal Brahman, who is now transformed. And during the process of transformation, he loses the immortality tag. So now this Jiva is a mortal Jiva. Now supposing this mortal Jiva does a lot of sadhana, right? Why? Because he wants to become immortal. And with all this sadhana, he becomes that immortal Brahman again. Then he says, this change from mortality to immortality, this change from the mortal Jiva to the immortal Brahman, is it not a transformation? It's a transformation. And therefore, you are saying that what has happened is that the mortal Jivatma does sadhana and then becomes immortal by transformation. But sadhana is a karma, and Shastra says karma can produce only 4 results: apti, utpatti, samskaraha, vikaraha. What are they? What does it mean? Apti is what?
Reaching somewhere.
Reaching somewhere. Utpatti is what?
Is
creating
Producing something. Samskara is what?
is purification, and
purification
vikara is
Refining something. Vikara is change.
change.
So he says, you are saying that this mortal jiva has become immortal through sadhana. But sadhana can give only these 4 changes. And therefore, if this mortal jiva has become immortal through sadhana, will this immortal status acquired through any of these 4 methods, will this immortal status be a permanent or temporary status? It will be temporary. because whatever has a beginning will have an end. Another law of Shastra. Therefore, this is anitya moksha. That is temporary immortality. That's an oxymoron, right? Temporary immortality. The word itself is an oxymoron. Anitya moksha is a contradiction. Right? So Shankara says that artificial immortality can never be permanent. Right? And therefore, for the philosopher who is saying that this Brahman changes into the world, the real immortal Brahman does not ever exist for him. Because for him, there is no concept of immortality since everything is mortal. Jiva is mortal, Jagat is mortal, the Brahman before the change is mortal, the Brahman after the change is either Jagat or Jiva, so that is also mortal. When they change back to Brahman, again it is mortal because in future the change will occur again. And therefore he says, Anirmoksha Prasangaha. Very nice technical word. Anirmoksha Prasangaha means the question of immortality, question of moksha does not come into being at all. You cannot have moksha in that kind of a darshanam. In that philosopher's view, there is no question of moksha at all. Because moksha means immortality. And for that philosopher, nothing is immortal. Therefore, why does he talk about moksha at all? Right? Okay. Now we can have some questions. What about Maya? You are saying that what changes can never be eternal, can never be immortal. What about Maya? Maya is changing all the time. Is it immortal? Is it eternal or not? Is it nityam or not? What is the answer?
Maya is Nityam, but it is of a lower order of reality. It is dependent.
And dependent.
Okay, you
It's
guys are all
Mithya.
senior students. Okay, senior students. So I'll give another answer. For the beginner student, for a person who starts Tattva or even halfway into Bhagavad Gita, we say that Maya is immortal. But for people like us who are supposedly, advanced Vedantics, we say what Maya? There is no Maya at all. Maya is the biggest mithya of all because it doesn't exist. Why does it not exist? Because in essence, like the bangle is gold, in essence, Maya is also Brahman. Okay. And there is another answer which we saw in Vivekachudamani, or we will see whenever we do it.
Sanyapya ubhayatmikam.
Yeah.
Anirvachaniyam. Maya only appears to exist. It doesn't really exist. Maya neither exists nor is it non-existing. It is anirvachaniyam. We cannot talk about it at all. In short, anything which changes has to be mortal. This is the fundamental Vedantic rule. And in Vedanta, when you talk about vikara, changing things, they can be divided into two. Maya karanam, Maya karyam. Both are anityam. Maya as karanam is anityam. Maya as karyam is anityam. So when we say Maya karyam is mortal, anityam. Maya karyam is what? Product of Maya, which is the Jagat, right? So when we say Jagat is mortal, we mean that it is Maya, but during every pralayam, that universe, that Vyakta Maya resolves into its Karanam, which is Avyakta Maya. That is the meaning of when you say Maya Karyam, the universe is mortal. What about Maya Karanam? If Maya Karanam is mortal, how does it end? There is no end
Karanam.
for Maya naturally in time. Time cannot bring Maya to an end. But Maya ends for the person
Moksha.
who has got jnana.
Mm.
This has to be very clearly assimilated. The person who has got jnanam, for him, the spell of Maya ends. Maya doesn't end immediately. If Maya ends immediately for him, what will happen? The moment he gets jnanam, poof, he is dead. I bet none of you will be in this class after that. If I tell you that, next class will be empty, right? So for him, the spell of Maya ends, but Maya continues. That is why anirvachaniyam, that which continues to be there even after it is gone. Okay, the next karika. All very beautiful karikas. 23. Bhutato bhutato vapi
भूततो भूततो वापि
भूततो वापि
सृज्यमाने समाश्रुतिः
सृज्यमाने समाश्रुतिः
निश्चितं युक्तियुक्तं च
निश्चितं
निश्चितं
युक्तियुक्तं च
युक्तियुक्तश्च
यत्तद्भवति नेतरतः
यत्तद्भवति नेतरतः
नेतरतः
So another argument. Bhutataha abhutataha srijyamane va api. So whether this creation, bhutataha, is really created, right? Bhutataha srijyamane, whether this universe is really created or abhutataha srijyamane, whether it is apparently created, Shrutihi samaha, the Shruti Vakyam is the same one. Yat nishchitam, that which has been properly understood, yukti yuktam, using proper logic. Tat bhavati, that alone is the meaning of the Shruti. Na itarataha, not anything else. What does he mean? Shruti Vakyam and yukti yuktam. It's a very important uh, understanding. To understand the real meaning of a Shruti Vakyam, you have to use logic. Right? So, Mimamsa Shastram, for understanding the meaning of the Shruti Vakyam, and logic has to ensure that there is no contradiction. Right? So, let us say there is a Purvapakshi, an opponent. He says, you say that whatever is changing is mortal. You say Brahman is nirvikaraha, that is without change. And therefore I agree that Brahman is immortal. But nirvikara means there is no change at all. And therefore, how can you say that Brahman creates the world or creates anything for that matter? And he points out there are many Shruti Vakyams which talk about Brahman being a creator. How can you reconcile these two ideas? One is that Brahman is nirvikaraha, therefore a karta. Therefore, he cannot be Srishtikarta. Rather, there are plenty of Shruti Vakyams which say that Brahman is creator, Srishtikarta. How can you reconcile these two? One of them has to be wrong. And if one Shruti Vakyam is wrong, then the entire Shruti is no longer Pramanam. This is the Purvapakshi's viewpoint. So Shankara in his commentary writes Bhadam. So Bhadam is a very nice word. Bhadam means okay, you are partially correct. Because Shruti talks about Brahman as Jagat Karanam, we accept. But the correct understanding, that is the Tatparyam, is different. So here he says, Sa Anya Paraha. That Tatparyam is Anyam, is different from what you are saying. When we say Brahman is creating, then we have to talk about Brahman as Upadana Karanam. The moment you say Upadana Karanam, you should not immediately jump and say Upadana Karanam, therefore it becomes changing, and therefore it like milk changes into curds, all that thing you must not say. Right? So you have to ask a question. what is the type of Upadana Karana? Is it Vivarta or is it Parinami? We don't accept Brahman as Parinami Upadana Karana. We accept Brahman as Vivarta Upadana Karana. Vivarta Karana means what? A seeming cause, unchanging Karana, because it does not change. Like the rope, which in dim light does not change, but seems to become a snake. That is a Vivarta Karana. Right? So Advaita accepts this and we call it Adhyasa. This is temporary Adhyasa, which of course is subject to negation called Apavada later. Therefore, whenever any Shruti Vakyam is studied, right, which talks about Srishti, creation, we have to have four different stages in which our understanding progresses. The first one is we say is Brahman is the non-changing cause for Jagat. Brahman cannot change because Brahman is nirvikaraha, and it is the nirvikaraha non-changing karanam for Jagat. Then the second level comes where we say Brahman is a seeming cause. Then we say Brahman is not the real cause, and therefore we say since Brahman is not the real cause, there cannot be a real karyam, a real product. Therefore, Jagat is mithya. Why is this important? Because moksha, remember, is knowing Satyam, right? Knowing yourself as a Satyam. But the first step in knowing myself as Satyam is to know that everything else is mithya. Our first step in moksha is to, the moksha process, is to understand the mithyatvam of the world. Even though it says Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya, the second phrase, Jagan Mithya, is the first step in understanding. Without dismissing the world as Mithya, you cannot accept yourself as Satyam. Right? And Shankara gives two reasons why Srishti cannot be Satyam, why creation cannot be Satyam. He says that Vedanta says, and for that matter, even Einstein said, okay, matter cannot be created or destroyed. E is equal to mc squared. There is only transformation. Matter transforms into energy, energy transforms into matter. The visible transforms into the invisible and back to visible. Avyakta to vyakta, vyakta to avyakta, which we saw in Bhagavad Gita. So when matter can neither be created nor destroyed, where is the question of a creation? And therefore you cannot take the primary meaning of the word created. When you talk about Srishti, you cannot take the primary meaning of the word created. You have to take what we call the Gauna Artha, the figurative meaning. Right? Let's give an example of a figurative meaning. We say that, Rama is a pillar of that house. What is the real meaning?
It refers to his strength.
Yeah, the
And
fact
not.
that the house depends upon him. You are not saying that Rama is literally holding the ceiling up, which is the job of a pillar. Right? So the Mukhya Artha of pillar cannot be applied when you say this is a statement. So the Gauna Artha has to be applied, saying that he is very important, keeps the house together. That is the first argument that Shankara uses, and therefore he says, don't take the meaning of primary meaning of Gauna, of creation. There is no real creation at all. It is as if creation has come. Then he gives a Abhyupetya Vada, suppositional argument. He says, supposing creation is not mithya, supposing it's a real creation, supposing Jagat is Satyam, right? Now, because Jagat is Satyam, what is the definition of Satyam? Trikale Tishtati iti Satyam. If Jagat is Satyam, it can never go away. It can never destroy it. And then if you argue that Satya Samsara can go away, which you might argue, then we can argue that in the same way, Satya Brahman can also be destroyed. And if Satya Brahman can be destroyed, where is the meaning for the Shastra? Where is the Prayojanam for the Shastra? So moksha is possible. Samsara can go away only if you accept that samsara, Srishti is mithya. And only mithya can go away through jnanam. Therefore, he says all forms of creation, whether it be pratibhasika dream, that is the gauna. The gauni Srishti is pratibhasika dream. The mukhya Srishti is vyavaharika dream. They are all born from what? From Mula Vidya only and are not real at all. They are all mithya. And in Mundaka we saw Sabhaya Bhantaro Yajhi Ajaha. Ajaha. This Brahman is never born in the form of a Jagat. Jagat is never created. Right? Therefore, he says, whatever conclusion you arrive at by analysis of Shruti, and we know that for Tatparyam of Shruti, you use something called Shadlingani. I hope you remember. What is Shadlingani? The 6 indicators which tell you what the meaning of a Shruti Vakyam is. Right? So whatever meaning you arrive at using those 6 indicators, using those Shadlingani, that can be only Ekam Eva Advitiyam Brahman. That's one non-dual Brahman alone. And that non-dual Brahman is not born. It is immortal. Not being born, it is immortal. And the same idea is arrived at by Yukti Yuktam, by logic also, through Mananam. So Shravanam tells you that Brahman is immortal. In your Mananam process also, using this logic, what logic? Anything which changes cannot be immortal. Jagat is changing, Jagat cannot be immortal. Brahman doesn't change, therefore Brahman is mortal. All that logic you use, Yukti Yuktam, you arrive at the same teaching. And therefore he says, that teaching given by the Shastram, which is validated by logic, that Tatparyam alone is the real teaching, not anything else. Therefore, even the Dvaitam which you find in Karma Kanda is meant to understand that that Dvaitam has to be finally negated by coming to Advaitam. So these ideas are being conveyed in these karikas and are very excellent karikas for Nididhyasana. So Dvaitam is samsara, right? The journey from bondage to moksha can never be a journey from Dvaitam to Dvaitam. If you go from one Dvaitam to another Dvaitam, you have not removed the cause of bondage, which is Dvaitam. Therefore, how can there be moksha? So, to explain that, wherever there is Dvaitam, duality, in the form of subject-object division, right? Duality means what? There is a subject, there is an object. In all such places, there is desha and kalaha, time and space, always there. Remember, wherever duality is there is a time division, there is a space division. Once time comes and space comes, what comes? Mortality comes. Because time and space are born entities, right? Akashaha is the firstborn. They're all born entities, therefore they die also. Therefore mortality is there. So once time and space is there, mortality is there. Once mortality comes, then because of this object division, here comes insecurity comes. And wherever there is this duality, Raga Dvesha will be unavoidable. Raga Dvesha is a immediate child of bondage. And thirdly, wherever there is duality, there will be comparisons. This is better, that is even better, this is superior, that is awful. So jealousy cannot be avoided. Again, another form of bondage. Therefore, yatra yatra dvaitam, tatra tatra bhayam. Yatra yatra dvaitam, tatra tatra ragaha, deshaha, asuyaha. All these become inevitable. This whole bunch of duality born problems has got one name, samsara. And therefore, moksha can never be a journey from dvaitam to dvaitam. Moksha cannot be a journey from this loka to Vaikuntha loka or Kailasha loka, right? Because all lokas, there is subject-object division. You may have traveled from this earthly dvaitam to Vaikuntha dvaitam. So as long as you keep dvaitam in your mind, samsara will continue. And this idea should be very, very clear for all of us. Moksha cannot come and go. Right? You don't go somewhere to get moksha. You don't go somewhere to look at a wonderful Lord Shiva or Lord Vishnu and sit at his feet. That is not a mature concept. So a serious student should drop this concept. This is the most important idea which Gaudapada is trying to give us. Then what is the journey from bondage to liberation, from bondage to moksha? It's a journey from Dvaitam to Advaitam alone. Because in Dvaitam, you cannot get rid of mortality. In Advaitam, there is no mortality to get rid of. Right? How do you know? The best example is Sushupti Avastha. During Sushupti, there is no Raga, there is no Dvesha, there is no Kama, there is no Krodha, there is nothing. Because the other two avasthas, Jagrat and Swapna, are Dvaitam. Sushupti is Advaitam. Because the mind is resolved. The mind is the primary cause for this recognizing Dvaitam. And that's why we say that the journey from Dvaitam to Advaitam is not a physical journey. It's not a spatial journey. Because Advaitam is not located in a particular place. So Advaitam cannot be a destination within time and space. Therefore, there is no journey at all. And what is this journey then when we say spiritual journey? The journey from Dvaitam to Advaitam, it simply means a journey from Ajnanam to Jnanam. Because of Ajnanam, you see this apparent Dvaitam, and from that Ajnana Avastha, you go to the Jnana Avastha, the Advaita Avastha, by understanding that seeming duality is not real. It's like the dreamer waking up. There is no physical journey, but he has got rid of the dream. He has transcended the dream by waking up. Right? So, if we can understand these points thoroughly, the entire Mandukya Upanishad is assimilated. And to sum up, Dvaitam is samsara because it is Dvaitam. Therefore, the journey from bondage to moksha can never be a journey from Dvaitam to Dvaitam. Journey for moksha has necessarily to be from Dvaitam to Advaitam, which is in the form of Jnanim Jnanam only. Okay. Any questions?
This second line of 23 number sloka,
Yeah.
Nishchitam yuktim cha. So the word in Sanskrit it appears as yuktim cha,
No,
but in
yukti.
transliteration in translation it appears as yuktim yuktam cha. So what is the text that I have?
The text that I have is Yukti Yuktam. Yukti Yuktam. That which is Yuktam, supported by Yukti, logic.
Okay.
So there may be a problem with the text perhaps.
Okay, thank you.
It's Yukti Yuktam.
In translation, it is mentioned as Yukti Yuktam, but in Sanskrit, it is mentioned as Yukti Yuktim. So it could be a typographical error
It could be a
somewhere.
type, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Acharyaji, you used a term anitya moksha.
Yeah.
So is it the same thing as apekshika?
No. Apekshika mukti is relatively long time. Like if you, if you have, let us say, sitting in Brahmaloka, then your life period is much, much, much longer than the human life period. So that is apparently immortal. Because compared to us, compared to human life, that is a huge period. So that is apparent, relatively immortal. But
yes, and anitya moksha will not
Anitya
be.
moksha is a contradiction in terms.
Yes,
It is oxymoron. You cannot have anitya moksha.
Yes. Ji, thanks.
Okay.
Om sir,
Yeah.
can we use a corollary that Maya is a dependent mithya entity and the Karanam? So anything produced from Maya will be mithya only.
Yeah,
Jagat.
absolutely.
All.
Yeah. In fact, entire matter is mithya.
Yes. 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 Thank you, sir.
But as I said, mithya itself is not really there.
Yeah.
Mithya is the greatest
Mandukya makes it. Yeah. Definitely.
Okay, we have enough time, I think, for one more karika. So let us look at karika number 24.
क्या मुंह मारी है ना
नेह नानेति चान्नयाद
नानेति नयात्
इंद्रो
होता ना आवाज कड़ी में
मायातीत्यपि
Indro Mayatityapi
अजायमानो बहुधा
Ajayamano Bahudha
मायया जायते तु सः
Maya
Maya
मायते
tu
सः
Jayate Tusaha.
Okay, so saha, that atma, tu jayate. Tu is for emphasis. Indeed, that atma is born. Maya, but apparently only. How do we know that? Amnayat. So amna is another word for Shruti. Amnayat. It's revealed in Shruti Vakyams. And what are the Vakyams? Neha naneti, which is iha na nana iti. Iha, in this Atma, na nana iti. There is no multiplicity at all. There is no plurality at all. Nana means number of things, right? That is which Upanishad? Neha naneti kashana.
Kathopanishad.
Kathopanishad. Then Indra Maya Bihi iti api. So this we have not done, but it is in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. The Atma is seen as many. Indra here means Atma. Indra Maya Bihi iti api. The Atma is seen as many. The one single Atma is seen as many because of Maya only. And then there is Purusha Suktam. Ajayamanaha Bahuda. Ajayamanaha, remaining unborn, it is apparently born as Bahuda, as many. Right. So in his Bhashyam, on this Karika, Shankara says that Yadi hi bhutata eva srishti syat. Supposing the srishti is considered to be real, which is to say that if Satya Brahman has undergone a real change to produce Satya world, Satya Jagat, which means that both Brahman and Jagat have the same order of reality, right? This is the Brahma Parinama Vada, which we talked about earlier, Purvapakshi. Then what happens? Then the world of plurality is also Satyam. Tataha Nana Vastu Satyameva iti. Therefore, the multiple world of multiplicity is also Satyam. And Amnayaha, in that case, the Veda Vakyam, Amnayaha, which reveals the absence of Dvaitam, Nasyat, would not have been there in the Veda. So his argument is that if Srishti is real, which means Brahman really undergoes a transformation to produce a real world, then the world is real. And therefore, why would the Veda say that there is no Dvaitam? The Veda would talk about Dvaitam. And therefore, he quotes Neha Nanasti Kinchana. All these statements, they are for negating duality. Remember that duality, Dvaitam, can be experienced. Dvaitam has utility because you can transact in Dvaitam. But in spite of this experiencing, in spite of the utility, in spite of the transactability, Dvaitam is mithya. Veda does not negate the experience of the world, nor the fact that the world is useful for transactions, like studying. Right? Veda doesn't say that it's not there. Veda does not negate experienceability or utility or transactability of the world. What does it negate? The existence only. Right? Therefore, to make this, to make us understand this, he says that creation has been introduced as an adhyasa by Shruti for the purpose of revealing the Advaitic Atma. And this Srishti is mithya only. Right? He gives an example. He says Prana Samvadavat. So this Prana Samvadavat is a very famous example. It is the debate among the sense organs as to who is the superior one. Who finally turns out to be superior?
Prana.
Prana, right? But he says this is like, this debate is like that. That debate is imaginary one. Why? Because sense organs cannot talk, no? How can they have a debate? Since that debate is only imaginary, in the same manner, he says Srishti is also imaginary. And when Srishti says, he points out, Srishti says, Neha naneti kinchana. Neha nana iti. Upanishad is making a statement in the present tense. The meaning is there is no plurality. It does not say there was no plurality. He says there is no plurality. You are experiencing plurality in the present, but even during that experience, through that experience, Shruti is telling you the fact is really there is no plurality at all. You are experiencing the sunrise, but the fact is really there is no sun rising at all. It is only the earth which is turning. So when you tell somebody there is no snake at all, what you mean to say that what you are seeing as a snake is not a snake. It is the rope ajnanam which is manifesting as a snake. Right? And then there is second example, Indro Mayavihi. So he says, here Indra means Ishvara because Srishti is being talked about. So like Ishvara created the universe using Maya Shakti. The fact is that this Srishti is Mithya. And that is revealed by the Shruti's use of the word Maya. Right? So here there is a interference by, or interference, a question by the Purvapakshi. He says, look at the Sanskrit dictionary, Amara Kosha, etc. Maya is called Prajna. And Prajna has two meanings, right? One is Vritti Jnanam, thoughts, and one is Swarupa Jnanam, the consciousness principle itself. Of these two, which should be taken? So the Mimamsa rule is there. You can only give a meaning to any Shruti Vakyam, any Shruti statement, which will not contradict any other Shruti statement. So in the vision of the Upanishad, what is there? The Maya refers to what is negatable through Jnanam. And if you take these two meanings, Vritti Jnanam and Swarupa Jnanam, which is not negatable through Jnanam? Swarupa Jnanam.
Swarupa Jnanam.
Therefore, Swarupa Jnanam cannot be taken as the meaning. Therefore, anything which is negatable by any means cannot be Satyam. Right? And therefore, Shankara says, Satyam, the word Maya, has been translated into Prana. Into Prajna, it is correct. But you have to take it as Vritti Jnanam. Because if you take it as Swarupa Jnanam, then it contradicts other statements of the Shruti. Okay. With this, we'll end for today. Any questions? Om Purnamada
Om Purnamada
Purnat
Purnat
Purnamudachyate
Purnamudachyate
Purnasya
Purnasya
Purnamadaya
Purnamadaya
Purnam Eva Vasishyate
Purnamevavasishyate
Om
Om
Shanti Shanti
Shanti Shanti
Shanti
Shanti
Om Tat Sat Om Namah
Thank you,
Shivaya.
Ravi
Thank
ji.
you everybody for
Om
Om
joining.
Tat
Tat
Sat
Sat,
Om
Om
Namah
Namah
Shivaya.
Shivaya.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Acharya ji.